Hello guys. So imagine you have a phone. Like you have this phone in your room, and you get a number of calls each day, a lot of calls each day actually. And each time somebody rings your phone, this telephone, you have to pick up and normally ask, hello, who is it? Who am I talking to? Ask them what they need, right? Each and every single time you have to do the same thing before you proceed to having the conversation or whatever you need to discuss with that person, right? And you do this a number of times a day, probably multiple times a day, probably multiple times a week, repeatedly. All right. Now imagine there was a way to sort of automate that thing that you do where you pick up and then ask what they need. Right. So like this time around, instead of getting up to go and pick up the phone and ask, you have this automated something, let's say a robot somewhere who actually picks up the call and then asks who is on the call and what the person needs, and then whatever happens, maybe they forward the rest of the process to you. Like that will make your life so easy, will make your life so straightforward. All right, like, and will save you a lot of time to do other things, right? Now, this is the similar concept for GitHub Actions, right? So just like your phone rings, it's the same thing for your code on your repository, on your GitHub repo. The ringing of the phone is an event on the telephone, right? A phone can receive messages, a phone can receive flashes and a whole lot of things, right? And those are all events. Now, just like that, your GitHub repo also can have a lot of events that are being applied on it. Okay, so example events are like a PR can be created on your repo, on a branch. An issue can be created. PR can be made. You can put some commits to it. If it's an open source project, you can have a contributor join the project and stuff like that, right? Now, just imagine anytime these events are done on your repo, you have to go in there. If it's, let's say, for a software, you have to go in there and then you have to sort of review the PR, merge the PR, and deploy it to your live service. Right now, imagine you are doing this multiple times a day. Look at the time you spend to be SSHing into your server and then be pulling stuff. If you have to deploy over a Docker container or something, you have to manually build the images and a whole lot of things just to get that one change on your live server. This is really not realistic, like in a real world, right? Unless it's a very small scale project or a personal project that you don't mind. But in an actual real life tech team dev environment, you need to be more efficient, right? And now this is where GitHub Actions come in. So just like with your telephone that you're able to get a robot to automatically pick your calls or stuff like that for you, it's the same thing for GitHub Actions. You are able to respond to certain events that happen on your repository, and then based on that, you perform a certain action, right? So now what we have on the screen is a representation of the typical flow. So you commit your code to your repository. Now you set up an action, let's say an automation, right? Which now spins up a virtual environment. So let's say on your PC or on your server, what you'd have normally done is to SSH into maybe your Linux server, build your project and then maybe deploy it, or maybe you build on your local computer and then you deploy it on a live server, stuff like that, right? The GitHub Actions can do exactly that same thing for you. So you can spin up a virtual environment, it can run your test, and then it can build the artifact, and then it can deploy it. Now, this is a very oversimplified view of it, but then it's fundamental, okay? Because there's a whole lot of things that you can do with GitHub Actions. Like I said earlier, you can build containers, you can SSH into servers, put some things here, put some things from here, merge it, stuff like that. It's really fun. Then once you are done, GitHub automatically handles the deployment to your live server as well. And all of this happens without you touching a finger. Like you are not even raising a finger. Just by pressing enter to push your code, bam, it goes out there. All right. Now, this flow you see here is what we normally call the workflow, right? GitHub workflows. So the workflow consists of an event, right? So you are listening for an event. In JavaScript, you say something like on click, on mouse over, on mouse enter, or stuff like that. On GitHub too, you can listen for events like that. So in this case, the event is your code is committed. Then when the event happens, you perform an action for the event, right? And then once the action is completed, you may deploy or do whatever you want to your live server. So everything together is what we call the workflow. All right. And those series of steps and those series of actions, automated actions that you take, it's what we call the GitHub Actions. It's very simple. It's really simple. It's basically you uploading to an automated process what you'd have done normally. All right. So now let's talk briefly about some advantages of GitHub Actions, right? So obviously GitHub is very popular, so there's a lot of code bases there, and GitHub Actions integrates seamlessly with GitHub, so you don't have to do too much of additional configuration. The workflows are fully customizable. You can sort of just put anything you want done automatically in your workflow. Like, it's so flexible, you can do a lot. And it has matrix builds, right? So imagine, let's say you are developing a Java app, right? Now, you would want to sort of maybe run some tests on different environments. For example, you want to test the app in maybe the Windows environment or maybe Mac environment or something like that, right? You would want to GitHub Actions can help you to actually spin up environments just by typing a few things to spin up different environments that your app will be tested in, and then they will all run perfectly, all without you having to do it manually by hand. Like that's really cool, right? Okay, and then also there is a lot of customizable actions out there that you can use, and then you can adopt to to fit your needs, right? So most of the time, except for a few times where you will have to chill or remember your own script, most of the time all you need to do is to understand what always is going on in the script. Like I always tell you guys, just really understand what is going on in the script, right? Once you get the concept, you can always apply it into more complicated flows, right? Now the other thing is that there's a lot of extensive documentation about a GitHub action. So there is a lot that, like, there's a lot of support you can get when you are stuck. All right, so we are I mean, this video we are going to write our first GitHub Actions file from scratch. Okay, from scratch. So what we'll do is that I'm going to create a demo node repository on my local. We are going to push it, we are going to clone it, and we are going to push the changes. We are going to write our first GitHub action script. All right, and we are going to see how it works in real time. Okay, so let's go straight to my GitHub account, right? So we go to repositories, and then I'm going to create a new repo right here. So I'll make it demo node app, right? So demo for GitHub Actions, right? It's going to be a public repo. Then we are going to create a repository. Nice. Okay, so I'm going to clone this repo on my local, and then we are going to initialize our node project right there. Okay, so let me do the cloning. So now I've added the repo, the clone repo to my VS Code. So we are going to initialize a new node project. Let me close all of these instances right here. So I'm going to do npm init, right? And this will initialize a new, let's just do this entry point index.js. Yes, thank you. Test command. We'll just do this repo keywords, right? Okay. So yes, I have just done -y for that anyways. Right, so okay, so we have the package.json. Let's create a new file, maybe index.js, right? Okay, so this will basically have nothing. We can do, let's say, console.log hello GitHub Actions, right? So this is it. We have that right here. Let's clear our screen. Okay, so we have an empty node repo. Let's just do node index.js, see whether we get a response. Okay, so our repo is working. Now, for the sake of testing, right, let's install one package. Maybe let's install Express. All right, so let's do npm install Express. Okay, all right, so this should install Express.js, right? Perfect. So now we have our node modules folder, and then we have our package.json, and we have all of those things that we need, right? And also we have our Git repo, we have our Git repository right here. So let's do a Git status. All right, so these are all on track files. Now, we don't want to push our node modules folder into our Git, right? So what we'll do is we'll create a Git ignore, right? So let's do Git ignore. All right, and let's add the node modules right there. Okay, so we do not commit node modules folder into our Git repo because we don't need it over there. We always rebuild it once we get it. We'll run an npm install and then we'll get that folder again. So and I mean, by standard, we don't add node modules to the source repository, right? It's not very necessary. Okay, so let's do, now we have our index. We've installed one package now. Let's do a git add, right? So let's commit this to our repo. So let's do first commit. Okay. All right. So first commit. So now we've committed all the changes. Let me do clear over here. All right. And then let's do git push. We git branch. Let's check the branches we have here. Okay, we have main. So git push origin main. Okay, so we push the changes to our repo. All right, so now let's go check our repo, see, just to make sure that we have our app there. Okay, perfect. So we have our app here, our node app, right? So the next thing is now we made a commit. We are going to create an action on this repository, an action to just run stuff and try installing, basically to try installing all the packages that we've added here. All right, just to see how it will work. Okay, because this is just a beginner tutorial, we're not going to go too far to deployment and all of that stuff. The idea is for you guys to see how the flow works when you add an action, how the project is built and stuff like that. Okay, so in your repository, you see there's a portion called actions over here. So we'll go there. Now, when you go to actions, this is what I said initially. There are so many available actions that GitHub offers you that you can just add to your project, right? Sorry, I need to take water. Let's continue. Yeah, so there are so many actions available. This is an action to publish Node.js package to GitHub packages. There's Dino, there's Gulp, there's Webpack, there's a bunch, and you can actually search for a particular workflow that you want. Okay, so let's assume we are going to do something like this, like Node. Okay, now we have a Node.js action over here. We go to configure. So if you guys realize, immediately you go to configure, you realize that GitHub automatically creates this folder for you, and then this file in your repo, the .github, and then your /workflows folder, and then with this file. Okay, so once you commit, this file will actually be added to your repo, and this is the actions file. Now we are going to go through this file one by one to understand what is happening here. In fact, we're going to write everything from scratch. Okay, so just bear with me there. So we are going to create this GitHub folder, and we are going to create a workflows folder, right? And we are going to create the files in our local, and then we are going to commit it and see it run live in action. All right. There are so many actions available that you can use based on whatever you are working on. People's own that you can adapt, and you can even create your own actions, right? Then that you can reuse all the time. Okay, all you need to do is to create a repo, and then in the repo have your actions.yml, and then you write all the script that you want in there, and then you can always reuse it whenever you want. Okay, so I'm going to cancel these changes so that we do it from scratch. Okay, so let's go back to VS Code. Okay, what we are going to do is we are going to create the new folder. Okay, so the new folder will be called .github. Perfect. And then we are going to create another folder inside, and we are going to call it workflows. So GitHub will automatically look for your actions in this particular directory. Okay, so we are going to say demo.yml. Okay, so this will be our demo actions file, and we are going to type everything that we need over here from ground up. Okay, so demo.yml. You can name it any file that you want. There's really nothing specific to it. Okay, so first of all, let me increase this. Let me zoom in over here so that we all get to see what's happening. Okay, so the first and if you are not familiar with YML, I advise that it's very easy. It's just like a set of actions that we write in a file, a YML file, and then normally we indent it, okay, and then we used to do a lot of configuration. Even in Docker, we use YML as well, and in different places for Swagger APIs and stuff like that. Okay, over here, YML is what we use to script the GitHub Actions, okay, or YAML file, right? So what we do is that the first directive we can give it is called name. Okay, so we can say demo node actions script, or let me say workflow. Okay, don't mind Conium trying to give me recommendations for for what I have to do here. Okay, so so the first thing you type is on. Okay, so now with the on, you are saying that on a specific event, all right, on a specific event, do something and something, or on a specific event on a particular branch, do something and something. Okay, so what we do is that we say on this guy is writing my script for me. Anyway, but you get the idea. So on push, then you specify the branches. Okay, so over here, we say you can specify multiple branches at a time. Okay, so you can say maybe I think our branch is main. So when a push is made to the branch main, all right, run whatever we are going to run in the script. Okay, you can also say pull request. You can use a number of events like we discussed earlier, right? So we are going to say on push to keep it simple. So when we push changes to our main branch, this workflow will happen. So now we say jobs, right? So now the jobs is supposed to the job is what we use to specify all the workflows that so you can have multiple jobs. You can have maybe the build job, then you can have your test job, then you can have you can have different jobs based on what you want to do, and then you can specify all of them individually, and then the different actions that they will take. Right now, once you do that, GitHub will take all of these jobs and then run them based on whatever conditions that you've specified. Right. So we have the job. Now we give the job a name. We say build, right? Now the build we say runs on, okay, then Ubuntu latest, right? So for the runs on, you can give you can give a number of this is going to run on. So what happens is that anytime you define GitHub Actions, you need to define the virtual environment that GitHub should run your code in, right? There's Windows, there's Mac, there's whatever environment that you specify. Okay, so all these environments are available, and whatever you want, you put it in the runs on, and then once you put in the runs on, when GitHub initializes your repository, when it tries to now run the actions you stated, GitHub will initialize this on the virtual server that you specify, right? The OS that you specify. So this is also very important. Okay, now this is a very interesting thing. Now this is what I talked about, that you can test on multiple OSs at a time. Okay, so now there's this directive called the strategy and then the matrix. Okay, so now you can say that for the matrix, you can say that, oh, okay, I want you to test my code on maybe node 18.x, 20.x, and then maybe 22.x. Okay, I want to test my code on these node versions, right? Just to make sure that it's robust enough, right? Now you can also say that you can also define metrics to run on like multiple OSs. So in that case, you say something like matrix OS, okay, and then you define maybe Ubuntu latest, Windows latest, Mac OS latest, or stuff like that, right? But in this case, we are just going to do we are just going to do the node version for now, right? And then later on when you are practicing, you can always practice with the OS version, the OS matrix as well. Okay, so this is a very cool thing that GitHub Actions lets you do, okay, to make your life very easy. Okay, so now that we have the strategy, we are going to say steps. Okay, so now this is the series of commands that is going to be run in order to build your project, on like the commands that you want to be performed, those things that you have done manually that you want to be performed on your repo. That is what that is what we are coming to do over here. Okay, so for the sake of learning, the first command we are going to run is this, and we do it with the run directive. Okay, we are going to say echo, right? So we are going to say the job was successfully, let me say, automatically triggered by and then we do it. Oh my god, Chromium is just giving me smoke over here. Okay, by a GitHub event name, right? So now these are like environment variables, global environment variables that you can access. Okay, so this gives you the event we talked about. So over here, definitely the event is what on push. Okay, so you're going to see what events triggered this particular workflow. All right, so triggered by GitHub.events event, right? So there are so many different types of events, and there are so many different types of environment variables as well that you can leverage on. Okay, so now the next thing is a very important part. We say uses actions or checkout. This time around we say v4. Okay, so now before anytime you want to perform some action on a repo or some activities on a repo, you first need to check out whatever branch is being requested for, right? You need to check out to that branch and do whatever you want to do with it. Now the actions checkout handles the checking out of the branch and the initializing of the branch and everything to sort of like make your code, your branch available for GitHub to do whatever they want to do. It makes it available for GitHub to spin up your code on their virtual servers, gives them the right permissions and everything to do what they have to do. And all of that is defined in this actions.checkout v4. So in fact, when we go to the actions, right, the GitHub provided actions, and then we go to checkout. Okay, so let's do checkout. What is it? Is it oh no, this is sorry, I'm in my own repo, so I'm not going to get it. So I need to go to github.com/actions. Okay, then over here, right, we should be able to get actions checkout. So let's search for it. Okay, so you see we have the checkout, right? So it's just another repo. And you see there's the action.yml here, and this is maintained by GitHub themselves, right? So you see name checkouts, and these are all the things that it does for you. It gets the access token and all of that stuff that you would have done. So if you're not using this checkout, you'd have probably done it. You'd have written all of this on your own in your YML file. Okay, so this is like, imagine you are coding and you are sort of like importing some package or something into your projects. Like that is how I choose to understand actions. Okay, so we are bringing in that particular file we just saw to come and do the checking out and the initializing of our repo. Okay, so we are going to say name, right? So you can add various names to identify various steps or various stages of your build or your job. all right, so that like anytime you review the logs or something, I don't know, oh, okay, this thing happened after this thing was stated, this thing happened after this was stated, stuff like that. Okay, so use Nodejs, right? So we defined a matrix over here, all right? So what will happen is that all of these things will be used by GitHub as they spin the virtual environment. So we know that, okay, this particular job was this particular step started with 8.x, then it went to 20.x, and it went to 22.x. Okay, so we are just sort of labeling the steps to know what is going on at each stage, right? So so we have this uses. I like the way Code is just recommending everything to me, even though I don't want it. Okay, so uses the action step. And so this is another actions to set up like the node, right? So further steps in the actions, defining the actions file to set up the node for this particular repo for the particular virtual environment that you are spinning up. Okay, things that, like I said, you would have done manually on your own. Okay, so uses this with node version, matrix node version over here, and then the cache npm. All right, so we are saying that try to cache the result of whatever npm install command that we do, like just in case that nothing changes with the node models. Okay, we don't have to like build each and every, we don't have to like regenerate all the files again each and every single time. Okay, if like there's no cache miss anywhere, right? And that's why we do the cache npm. All right, okay, so let's go to the next step, which is so we are going to do run npm ci. Okay, so this is a clean install of your node, so it's like your npm install, right? But this if you are, for the sake of, let me put it there, for the sake of making sure that all your dependencies are proper, there are no errors anywhere. If the node models you are installing do not hit the cache, right, what happens is that the virtual environment, GitHub virtual environment, will remove all your entire node modules folder and then perform a clean install of all your packages, right? Now this helps like reduce a lot of errors, maybe incomplete dependencies, erratic dependencies, and all that can actually mess you up like in a live environment. Okay, so this is some sort of check. Also, CI gives you like a very clean slate. Okay, so normally in the automated actions environment, you would like to perform a CI in order to make sure that you're always getting the most updated packages at all time. Okay, all right. Okay, so now we are going to do npm run build. Okay, for a node project, you don't need to run npm run build. Okay, because it's not like maybe an Angular or front-end or something project. So we are not going to run npm run build. We don't have any scripts to handle build. So just the install is fine for us. Okay, and we are going to do echo this jobs status is $job.status. Okay, so once the job is complete, we are going to see that, and then at the end we are going to see run node index.js. Okay, so we're going to see if this works. All right, so basically this is our first GitHub Actions file. It's very, 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 very simple. Let me even put this here so that this comes right after the install. Okay, so node index.js, right? So once again, we said that on push to the main branch, run this job, run on Ubuntu, the latest version of Ubuntu. We want to run this job on different varieties of node versions to make sure that we are like bulletproof with different environments. Okay, just to test. Okay, and then we are saying we want to pull in the actions from the actions checkout to check out our code, and then to make sure that we prepare it with the right permissions and stuff for the GitHub virtual environment. Okay, and then we want to label whatever build step with whatever node version you are running at that point in time. Okay, and then we want to catch the npm results. Then we want to run a clean install. Then we want to test our hello world to see whether node index.js will print something to the console. And then finally, we want to print the status of this particular job, all right, to the console as well. So this is this is a very simplified version of a GitHub action, but in a real world, maybe you'd also deploy the stuff you tested into a server somewhere, which I'm not going to cover in this, but then you get the idea. So the run over here is the command, the series of commands that you run. You can have multiple steps, you can have multiple runs, as many as is needed to package your application and then deploy it somewhere. Okay, so GitHub takes this file and then does whatever it has to do with it. So now let's do let's push, right? So let's commit this. Okay, then let's commit. So added an actions file. Okay, right. And now let's do get push origin main. Okay, so now we've pushed the changes. So now let's go to our repo and see what we have there. So where is our repo? Right, perfect. So this is our repo. Okay, and then let's go to the actions section, right? So you see, this is the workflow. So we have one workflow. GitHub has already picked it, and it's shown as queued over here. So let's click on it. Okay, so you see this is already running. So you realize that we specified multiple node versions. So the first one we specify is completed now. Okay, the second one, the 18.x is still running. So it says one of 3 jobs is actually completed. All right, so this is basically the flow. So let's go to the one that is completed, this one to see. Okay, so we have the setup job stage. Okay, you get some logs over here. So if anything is broken, you can see it right here. We have the job was automatically triggered by a push event. Okay, remember that echo statement that we did? Okay, over here. Then we ran the actions checkout over here too as well. Okay, which did what it has to do. So it said what temporarily overriding home, adding repository to the temporary git global config in a safe directory. So there's a whole lot of things it does to get your project ready. Okay, so over here it says use Node.js 20.x. Okay, so it did that as well. So it used Node.js 20.x. Then it did npm CI. So he said added 65 packages, audited 60, whatever, it installed it. Then it echoed job status success. So all the things that we said over there was done over here. And then we did node index.js and we got our console log hello GitHub Actions, okay, which is correct, which is exactly what we are looking for. And now we decided to echo the success or the status of the particular job at the end of the build, and then we have job status is success over here, just like what we stated there. Okay, and I realize that the job is still running for 18.x. It's already successful for the 22.x, right? So okay, so this is it right here. So over here it uses node 22.11.0, right? And basically this is all this is it, right? Everything is right here in the logs. If anything goes wrong, you are going to see the error and you're going to be able to pinpoint to exactly where the error happened. So this is basically our first GitHub action. It's very simple, it's very interesting. I hope I was able to explain it to you and I hope you're able to understand. So from here, do well to just practice, try something different, maybe not with Node, maybe with let's say an Angular app, a React app, or something basic that you can just go into and then test to see how it works. The best way to learn is always by doing. You can explore the actions marketplace as well to see what actions are available for you, what people have already put together for whatever type of projects that you are working on. And at the end of the day, your efficiency and your productivity as a developer will be greatly increased. All right, so thank you so much for joining me on this video. I hope I was able to teach you a lot. I hope you're able to learn a lot. Please, if there's any mistake I made during the explanation of the videos, please let me know in the comment section and leave a like, comments, show your support because it motivates me. to produce more. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. It's bye for now.